The desert highway stretched endlessly into darkness, broken only by the weak glow of a forgotten gas station somewhere between nowhere and nothing. The air hung heavy with dust and diesel fumes, carrying the weight of secrets that the night refused to tell. Under the sputtering fluorescent lights, a figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling, limping, barely holding herself upright. Her name was Rachel Morrison, though she'd almost forgotten it. 23 years old, but her eyes belonged to someone much older, someone who'd seen things that steal your soul piece by piece. Her denim jacket hung torn and filthy from her shoulders, revealing skin marked with bruises in various stages of healing. Purple, yellow, green, a timeline of pain written across her flesh. She collapsed against the gas pump, her bare feet bleeding onto the cracked concrete. The fluorescent sign above buzzed and flickered, casting her shadow in erratic pulses. Open, closed, open, closed, like her chances of survival. Then she heard it. That sound, low at first, like distant thunder rolling across the desert floor. But the sky was clear, stars sharp as broken glass against the black. The rumble grew louder, deeper, until it vibrated in her chest like a second heartbeat. Headlights pierced the darkness, one pair, then another, then a dozen more, slicing through the night like searchlights hunting prey. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. Her body, already broken, prepared for one final fight it knew it couldn't win. Now listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you think you know about judgment, about redemption, about who the real monsters are. If you believe that kindness can emerge from the most unexpected places, that the roughest exteriors can house the gentlest souls, and that true justice doesn't always wear a badge, then hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story needs to reach every corner of the world. Every person who's ever been dismissed, judged by their appearance, or written off as beyond saving needs to hear what happened on this desert road. And if you're new here, welcome to a channel that tells stories that matter. Real stories. Hard stories. Stories about humanity at its worst and its absolute best. We don't do clickbait. We don't waste your time. We bring you truth that cuts deep and stays with you. Now let's get back to Rachel, because her night is about to change in ways she never imagined. The motorcycles formed a semicircle around the gas station, their engines cutting off one by one until silence returned, thick, pregnant with possibility. Leather and chrome gleamed under the harsh lights. Patches on vests told stories of brotherhood, of roads traveled, of a code outsiders never understood. The Iron Brotherhood MC. The rider in front dismounted first, his boots hitting pavement with authority. They called him Steel, Marcus Steele Johnson. 6'4" of muscle and scars, his silver-streaked beard braided down his chest, his eyes hard as the desert rock, but somehow not cruel. He'd been riding for 37 years, seen things that would break most men, done things he'd never speak of. But the code was simple and absolute. Protect those who can't protect themselves, especially women, especially children. No exceptions, no excuses. Rachel saw him approaching, and her survival instincts kicked in. She tried to stand, to run, but her legs betrayed her. She crumpled back against the pump, blood from her feet leaving dark prints on the concrete. "Please," she whispered, her voice shredded raw. "Please just make it quick. I can't do this anymore." Steele stopped 10 feet away, held up his hands, palms out. "You're safe now. Nobody here's gonna hurt you. You have my word." Rachel laughed, a broken, terrible sound. "Your word, right? Because that means something." "It does to us," Steele replied simply. "It means everything to us. Here's where you need to pay attention, because what happens next is the moment that changed everything." He gestured to one of his crew, a lean man with kind eyes they called Document. Doc approached slowly, hands visible, movements deliberate and non-threatening. "I just need to see where you're hurt," Doc said gently. "That's all. You're in control here. You say stop, I stop." "Understood." Rachel's body was screaming at her to refuse, but something in Doc's eyes made her nod. Just barely. Just enough. Doc knelt beside her, careful not to crowd her space. He reached for the hem of her torn jacket, asking permission with his eyes before lifting it to examine the damage beneath. And that's when everything changed. The jacket shifted. The tank top underneath rode up. And there, burned into the pale skin just below her rib cage, were words that made every man present go absolutely still. Property of the Scorpions. The brand was old, maybe 18 months, maybe more, but deep. Professional. Done with hot iron and deliberate cruelty. The letters were raised, angry red scar tissue that would never fully fade. Around it, other scars told their own stories. Cigarette burns, knife marks, the evidence of systematic torture designed to break not just body, but spirit. Steele's jaw clenched so tight you could hear his teeth grind. Around him, his brothers, men who'd seen combat, who'd lived through violence, stood in shocked silence. A few turned away, their faces twisted with rage they were fighting to control. Rachel pulled her shirt back down, her hands shaking violently. She turned her face away, unable to meet their eyes, her voice barely audible. They said I'd carry their mark forever, that even if I ran, even if I got away, everyone would know what I am, that nobody would ever want something already branded, something already owned. A tear tracked down her dirt-streaked face. Then another. Then she was sobbing, great, heaving sobs that shook her entire broken body. Steele knelt down, moving slowly. He didn't touch her, just made himself small, made himself safe, and spoke in that same gentle voice. Not anymore, Rachel. You hear me? Not anymore. She looked up at him, confusion breaking through the pain. You know my name? Found your missing persons report while we were fueling up 50 miles back, Steele explained. Police have been looking for you for 2 years. Your mama never stopped searching, never stopped believing you were alive. Fresh tears came, but different now. My mama, we're going to get you home, Steele said firmly. But first, we're going to get you safe, get you fed, get you healed. And those animals who did this to you, they're going to learn there are consequences. The Iron Brotherhood took Rachel to their clubhouse, a fortified compound 20 miles north. They gave her the guest room, a space with a lock on the inside. A simple thing, a lock you controlled yourself. But for Rachel, it meant everything. It meant choice. It meant safety. It meant nobody could enter unless she allowed it. For the first 3 days, she barely spoke. She jumped at sudden sounds. She couldn't look at herself in mirrors. At night, the nightmares came, screaming, thrashing nightmares that brought brothers running to her door, calling through it to remind her that she was safe. They never opened that door, never tried to enter, just spoke through it until her breathing steadied, until the terror passed. Doc changed her bandages twice daily, always with the door wide open, always with a female volunteer present, always asking permission before every touch. The brand was infected, had been for weeks, and required antibiotics and careful treatment. One afternoon, while Doc was cleaning the wound, Rachel stared at it in the mirror. It's never going away, is it? Doc was quiet for a moment. Then, the scar won't disappear, no. But scars are funny things, Rachel. They start out as reminders of what hurt us. But over time, if we're lucky, they become proof of what we survived. You get to decide what this scar means. Not them. You. Now here's what happened while Rachel was healing, because justice doesn't always come from courtrooms. Steele and his brothers were working a different problem. The Scorpions weren't just another outlaw gang. They were traffickers, kidnappers. They specialized in abducting young women from truck stops and bus stations, breaking them down, then selling them or forcing them into service. Rachel was the 4th woman they branded. The other 3 were still missing. Steele made some calls. Old contacts, people who owed favors. By the 2nd day, he had an address, a compound outside Barstow where the Scorpions operated with impunity because they'd paid off local law enforcement. The police wouldn't touch them, but the Iron Brotherhood wasn't the police. What happened in Barstow was never reported in any newspaper. No arrests were made, no charges filed. But by dawn, the Scorpion compound was empty. The traffickers were gone. More importantly, 3 women were found in the basement, alive, traumatized but alive. Anonymous calls brought police and ambulances. The women were rescued. and Steele returned to the clubhouse as the sun rose, saying nothing about where he'd been. Rachel woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, sounds of laughter from the kitchen. Steele sat at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, his eyes tired but calm. "They won't hurt anyone again," he said simply. "You have my word on that, too." Rachel understood without asking. All she felt was relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Over the following weeks, Rachel began to heal. The brothers never treated her like damaged goods. They treated her like family, like she mattered, like her voice had value. She started helping around the clubhouse, cooking meals, organizing the garage, even learning basic motorcycle maintenance. The physical work felt good, made her feel useful, capable, strong. 3 months after that night at the gas station, Steele approached Rachel with an idea. "There's an artist I know, does incredible cover-up work, specializes in helping survivors reclaim their bodies. I thought if you're interested, we could deal with that brand." Rachel's hand instinctively went to her ribs. "What would we cover it with?" Steele smiled. "Whatever you want. It's your body, your choice, your story to tell however you want to tell it. If you're still watching this, if this story is touching something deep inside you, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to hear Rachel's story. Someone needs to know that survival is possible, that healing is possible, that you can take the worst thing that ever happened to you and transform it into strength. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tell me if you know someone who needs to hear this. Let's build a community of survivors, of fighters, of people who refuse to let their past define their future. The tattoo session took 6 hours. The artist, a woman named Maria who'd survived her own trauma, worked carefully and patiently. They designed it together over several meetings. When it was finished, Rachel looked in the mirror and cried. But these were different tears. Where a property of the scorpions had been burned into her flesh, there was now a phoenix rising from flames. And across the wings, in elegant script, for words that Rachel had chosen herself. "I belong to me." The brand was completely covered. The past literally transformed into art, into beauty, into power. Rachel touched the fresh tattoo gently, unable to believe what she was seeing. "This is who I am now," she whispered. "Not what they made me, who I chose to become." 6 months later, Rachel started volunteering at a women's shelter. At first, she just helped in the kitchen, stayed in the background. But gradually, the other women noticed something about her. A strength, an understanding that went beyond sympathy into true empathy. One night, a teenage girl arrived, 15 years old, rescued from trafficking, with brands and scars horrifyingly similar to what Rachel had carried. The girl wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, just sat rocking and crying silently. Rachel sat down across from her. Didn't say anything at first. Finally, she lifted her shirt just enough to show the phoenix tattoo. "I know," Rachel said simply. "I know what they did to you. I know what they took. And I know you think you'll never be whole again." The girl looked up for the first time. "But you will be," Rachel continued. "It won't be easy. It won't be quick. But you'll survive this. You'll heal. And one day, you'll help someone else the way I'm trying to help you now." The girl finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "How do you know?" Rachel smiled. "Because 2 years ago, I was kneeling in a gas station parking lot begging someone to just kill me fast. And now I'm here. I am alive. I'm free. And I'm telling you that you can be too." That conversation was the first of many. Rachel became a peer counselor at the shelter, officially trained and certified. She specialized in working with trafficking survivors, using her own story to give others hope. The Iron Brotherhood supported her work completely. They organized fundraising rides, donated money and supplies, even provided security for shelter events. These rough, scary-looking bikers became the shelter's most devoted advocates. A year later, Rachel stood on a stage at the Iron Brotherhood's annual charity ride, an event that now raised over $100,000 annually for trafficking survivors. 3,000 people filled the desert venue, motorcycles gleaming under the setting sun. Rachel took the microphone, no longer nervous, no longer afraid. "I used to think the world was only full of monsters," she began. "I believed that kindness was a fairy tale, and that people who looked scary were always dangerous. I was wrong on both counts. She gestured to Steele and the Iron Brotherhood members standing nearby. These men, these big, tattooed, leather-wearing bikers that most people cross the street to avoid, they saved my life. Not just my physical life, but my soul. They reminded me that humanity still exists, that honor still matters, that protecting the weak isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can do. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. 2 years ago, I wanted to die, Rachel continued. Today, I want to live. I want to help others live. I want to show every survivor that your scars don't define you. Your courage does. Your choice to keep going despite everything that defines you. She lifted her shirt slightly, showing the phoenix tattoo. This used to be a brand, a mark of ownership. Now it's a symbol of everything I've taken back. My body, my choice, my story, my life. The crowd erupted. 3,000 people on their feet, applauding, crying, celebrating this young woman who transformed her pain into purpose. Steele stood in the back, arms crossed, a slight smile beneath his beard. He didn't need recognition. Watching Rachel stand strong, watching her help others, that was reward enough. Before we end this story, I need you to understand something crucial. Rachel's story is real. Not every detail, not every name. Those have been changed to protect privacy. But the essence is real. Women are being trafficked right now, being branded, being broken, being treated as property. And there are people fighting back. Not always the police, not always the authorities. Sometimes it's outlaw bikers who live by a code that society doesn't recognize but desperately needs. If this story moved you, don't just watch and forget. Act. Subscribe to this channel so more people can hear stories like Rachel's. Share this video with someone who needs hope. Donate to organizations fighting trafficking. Volunteer at shelters. Use your voice to speak for those who've been silenced. And if you're a survivor reading this, if you carry scars, if you carry pain, if you carry shame that was never yours to bear, hear me clearly. You're not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by what you choose to do next. You are defined by your survival, your courage, your refusal to let them win. Drop a red heart in the comments if you stand with survivors. If you believe that healing is possible. If you believe that the darkest nights can lead to the brightest dawns. Rachel Morrison belongs to herself now. She's free. She's strong. She's helping others find that same freedom and strength. And somewhere tonight, on a dark highway, the Iron Brotherhood is still riding, still watching, still ready to protect those who need protection. Because that's the code, and the code is everything. Thank you for watching. Now, go be someone's miracle.